My parents maxed out my credit card for my golden child sister. So I did this. So let me just get this off my chest, because I've been holding it in for way too long. My parents, they have a favorite, and it's not me. It's my sister Ellie. She's been their golden child forever, and I'm the one who just gets by. I didn't really notice how bad it was growing up because, I thought all families were like this. But now, looking back, it's clear as day. The favoritism wasn't subtle, and it definitely wasn't fair. Ellie's been chasing this dream of being a model for a few years now, and my parents are all over it like she's going to be the next big thing. Spoiler, she's not. I'm not saying that to be mean, but it's just reality. She's had a few gigs, but nothing major, and now things are drying up for her. But guess what? Instead of helping her see that maybe it's time to move on, my parents keep throwing money at her like it's going to magically fix everything. And the worst part? They're doing it at my expense. I mean, it wasn't always this obvious. When we were younger, Ellie would get more toys, more clothes, more attention, but I brushed it off. I thought, okay, maybe she's just going through a phase, and they're trying to help her out. But now, it's like they've taken it to a whole new level. They actually planned this whole vacation to Hawaii just to cheer her up because her modeling career wasn't doing well. Are you kidding me? Like, who gets a Hawaii vacation as a pick-me-up for not being successful? Here's where it gets really messed up. I only found out about the Hawaii trip by accident. They didn't even tell me. I overheard my mom on the phone talking to one of her friends about how Ellie really needs this getaway and how it's going to be a great reset for her. I was just sitting there hearing all this, thinking, wait, what? A reset? For what? I work 12-hour shifts as a nurse, busting my butt at the hospital, and the one time I actually get a day off, I'm overhearing how they're spending my money on some luxury vacation for Ellie. Yeah, you heard that right. My money. You see, a few years ago, my parents hit some financial struggles. At least that's what they said. And I, being the loyal daughter I am, stepped in to help. They needed a little support, just until they got back on their feet. I gave them access to my credit card, trusting them to be responsible with it. I figured, they're my parents, they wouldn't take advantage of me. Ha, if only I knew what was coming. At first, the charges were small. Groceries, gas, a bill here or there. No big deal, right? But slowly, over time, the expenses started to grow. New furniture, electronics, dinners at expensive restaurants. And every time I asked about it, they'd brush it off like it was nothing. Oh, we just needed a little something to feel better. Don't worry, we'll pay you back soon. Except that soon never came. And I was too busy with work to really notice how bad it was getting. All right, so this is where things really started going downhill, and I mean fast. After the whole Hawaii trip reveal, I was already feeling like something had to give, like how much more of this was I supposed to put up with? But the thing that finally broke me wasn't even the vacation, it was the stupid handbag incident. So picture this. I just finished a long shift at the hospital. Patients, paperwork, the whole deal. I get home and there's this big box sitting on my doorstep. Now, I don't remember ordering anything, so I'm kind of confused, thinking, did I forget I bought something online? But no, my name's on the package and it's from some high-end designer brand. Like, the kind of place I would never shop at. I'm talking hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars for a single item. I drag the box inside and open it up, and there it is. A designer handbag. Fancy leather, gold accents, the whole deal. My first reaction? Pure confusion. I'm standing there, staring at this bag like, did someone send this to me by mistake? There's no way this is mine. I check the receipt inside, and yep, my name's on it. It's definitely meant for me. Or so I thought. So, like any normal person, I call my mom. Maybe it's a gift? Maybe, after everything, they're finally acknowledging how hard I work, and this is their way of saying thanks. I should have known better. Hey, Mom, I say, I got this package today. It's a designer handbag, and it has my name on it. Did you send this? She laughs. Actually laughs. Oh, Helen, that's not for you. It was supposed to go to Ellie. Must have been a mix-up with the address. At first, I thought she was joking. Like, seriously. But nope, she was dead serious. She goes on to explain how they bought it for Ellie because she's got some modeling gig coming up, and she needs to look the part. I just stood there, holding the phone, holding this stupid handbag, feeling my blood boil. So it's not for me? I ask, just to be sure I'm hearing this right. No, honey, you don't really need something that expensive, do you? I mean, you're a nurse. Ellie needs it more for her career. You understand, right? And there it was. The thing that had been lurking under the surface for years, finally said out loud, "You're just a nurse." That's what she thought of me. All the years I'd spent studying, working long hours, sacrificing sleep and weekends, all of it boiled down to, you're just a nurse. Meanwhile, Ellie, the golden child, needed to look the part for her modeling career that wasn't even going anywhere. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like the universe was slapping me in the face. I'd always known there was favoritism, but this was a next level. Not only was I not good enough to deserve a luxury handbag, but my career, the one I'd worked so hard for, wasn't even worthy of anything nice. And all because I wasn't chasing some superficial dream like Ellie was. I don't even remember how the rest of the conversation went. I think I just mumbled something about sending the bag to Ellie and hung up. My mind was spinning and I was pissed. Like, beyond pissed. It wasn't about the handbag. It was never about the handbag. It was about how they saw me, how they'd always seen me. And here's the thing. It's not like I need fancy things to feel good about myself. I don't need a designer bag to validate my career. But to have my own mother flat out tell me that I wasn't worth it, that was a different kind of hurt. Like, they didn't see me at all. All they saw was Ellie and her endless failing attempts to make it big, and I was just there. The reliable one. The one who didn't need anything because I'd always figure it out. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the conversation over and over in my head, trying to make sense of it. But there was nothing to make sense of. They'd shown me who they really were, who they'd always been, and I couldn't unsee it anymore. So the next day, I decided to take action. I wasn't going to let them keep using me like this. I packed up the handbag and sent it off to Ellie. I didn't bother leaving a note or anything, just shipped it and washed my hands of it. But that was just the beginning. I started going through my credit card statements, and that's when I realized just how deep this thing went. They weren't just using my card for little things here and there. We're talking big charges, luxury items, dinners, trips, all in the name of helping Ellie. And the worst part? I'd let it happen. I'd been so caught up in work and trying to juggle everything that I didn't even notice the slow bleed. That's when I knew something had to change. I couldn't keep letting them take advantage of me like this. I'd spent my whole life being the responsible one, the one who always picked up the pieces, but I was done. This wasn't just about the money. It was about respect, or lack of it. I made a plan. The next time they called me asking for help, I wasn't going to just hand it over. I'd been doing that for too long. I needed to stand up for myself, for the life I'd built on my own. Because clearly if I didn't, no one else would. The funny thing is, even after all this, they didn't seem to think they'd done anything wrong. It was like they were living in some alternate reality where everything revolved around Ellie, and I was just there to foot the bill. But I was done being their safety net, done being the backup plan when things didn't go their way. The next time they'd ask for help, they were in for a rude awakening. I wasn't just some ATM they could withdraw from whenever they wanted. I had my own life, my own dreams, and I wasn't going to keep letting them drain me dry. If they wanted to keep spoiling Ellie and living in their little fantasy world, they could do it without me. And you know what? I think deep down, they knew it. They knew they'd pushed me too far this time. Because after I sent that bag back, the calls started coming more frequently. They'd check in, ask how work was going, casually drop hints about needing a little help here or there. But I wasn't falling for it anymore. I could feel the shift. They knew they were losing their grip, and I was ready to let go. The next move was mine. And this time, I wasn't playing by their rules. All right, so after the whole handbag thing, I knew something had to change. My parents were clearly just using me to bankroll their lifestyle, and I had let it go on for way too long. But this time, I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I'd been keeping quiet, playing along, trying to be the good daughter for years, but enough was enough. They thought they had me under control. They thought I'd just keep paying for their mistakes and covering for Ellie's failures without a second thought. But I had other plans, and the best part? They didn't see it coming at all. So here's what went down. After shipping the handbag back to Ellie, I spent a couple of days thinking about how to handle this whole situation. I could have just cut them off completely right then, but I knew that wouldn't teach them anything. If I just stopped paying, they'd find some other way to manipulate me. No, I wanted them to feel it. I wanted them to understand what they'd done to me for all these years. That's when I came up with the idea. I was going to let them go on their precious vacation, but I wasn't going to fund it. Not this time. They'd been planning this Hawaii trip for months, all for Ellie, of course. My parents were acting like it was going to be the highlight of the year. Luxury hotels, fancy dinners, spa treatments, the whole 9 yards. And they were going to pay for it all with my credit card. Or so they thought. I waited until the night before they were set to leave. They were packing up, all excited, talking about how this trip is exactly what Ellie needs right now. I showed up at their house, pretending to be totally fine with everything. Played the part. I even told them, hey, I got you a new credit card. The old one's been acting up lately. And I don't want you to have any issues while you're in Hawaii. My mom looked at me with this relieved smile, like she actually thought I was doing her a favor. Oh, Helen, you're such a lifesaver. We were worried the old card might not work. You always know just what we need. Yeah, I bet I do, Mom. I handed her the card, keeping my face completely neutral. Inside, I was ready to explode, but on the outside, calm. I knew what was coming and I was ready. The card I gave them wasn't new at all. It was canceled. Totally useless. But I didn't tell them that. I let them pack their bags, get all hyped for the trip, and sent them on their way. It was the calm before the storm, and I was just waiting for the moment when everything would come crashing down. For the next few days, I kept my phone close. I knew the calls were coming, but I wanted to savor the silence for just a little while longer. Then, finally, it happened. The first notification popped up on my banking app. Decline charge. They'd tried to pay for dinner at some fancy restaurant, and the card didn't go through. I almost laughed when I saw it. A few hours later, another notification. Spa treatment declined. And then, later that evening, a declined helicopter tour. They were racking up failed charges faster than I expected. I could practically picture it. My mom and dad sitting there, confused, embarrassed, trying to figure out what was going on. They'd probably called the restaurant over to run the card again, thinking it was a mistake. But it wasn't a mistake. It was exactly what I planned. The phone calls started soon after that. I let the first couple go to voicemail because, honestly, I wasn't ready to deal with them just yet. I needed them to sit with it for a little while longer. Let them squirm. Let them feel the panic building up. They'd been doing this to me for years, and now it was their turn. When I finally picked up the phone, it was my dad. I could hear the frustration in his voice right away. Helen, we've got a problem. The card's not working. We tried to pay for dinner last night, and they said it was declined. Can you check on it? I played dumb. Really? That's weird. I'll look into it. I could hear my mom in the background, whispering something about needing to pay for a hotel. They were panicking now, and it was almost satisfying. Almost. I didn't do anything, of course. Just let them twist in the wind. The next day, more calls. Voicemails filled with urgency, telling me how they couldn't pay for anything and how embarrassing it was. Each message was more frantic than the last, but I wasn't ready to call them back yet. I wanted them to hit rock bottom. I wanted them to feel helpless, just like I'd felt when they kept draining my bank account without even thinking about how it affected me. And the thing is, I knew they weren't broke. My parents had money. They just didn't want to spend it. Why would they when they had me to pay for everything? Finally, after a couple more days of ignored calls, I picked up the phone again. This time it was my mom. She sounded more desperate than I'd ever heard her. Helen, please. We can't check out of the hotel until we pay the bill. They won't let us leave. We don't have enough cash and the card isn't working. Can you fix it? I took a deep breath, steadying myself. This was it. No, Mom, I'm not fixing it. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, like she couldn't quite believe what she was hearing. What do you mean, no? We need your help. You can't just leave us stranded here. I'm done helping, I said, my voice firm. You've been using me for years and I'm tired of it. This is on you now. You figure out how to get home. I'm not paying for anything anymore. The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear my mom trying to find the right words, trying to guilt me, but nothing came out. She knew I was serious. Finally, she whispered, "But we're your parents. You can't just leave us like this." I almost laughed at how absurd it was. After everything they'd done, after all the money they'd taken from me without a second thought, they still thought they could guilt me into bailing them out. "Yeah, well, you've left me high and dry for years," I said. "So now it's your turn. I'm done being your bank." And with that, I hung up the phone. I wasn't going to listen to their excuses anymore. I'd made my point, and for once, I was putting myself first. As I sat there, phone in hand, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. They were on their own now. They could figure it out or they could flounder. Either way, I was done. And honestly, it felt damn good. After I hung up the phone with my mom, I sat there for a while just processing everything. I couldn't believe I'd actually done it. For the first time in my life, I'd said no, and it felt good. Like, really good. But at the same time, I knew it wasn't over. My parents didn't just give up that easily. They'd call again. They'd try to guilt me, manipulate me, make me feel like the bad guy for standing up for myself. And honestly, I wasn't sure I was ready for that. But the thing was, I had to be. I was tired of being used, of being the one they always counted on while they treated Ellie like some princess. I deserved better than that. And if they couldn't see it, well, that was on them, not me. The next day, I checked my phone, expecting another barrage of calls or texts from my parents. But there was nothing, just silence. It was almost eerie, like they were plotting something, trying to figure out their next move. I half expected them to show up at my door demanding answers, but that didn't happen either. Instead, what I got was more declined notifications. Every time I checked my banking app, there it was, declined. They'd tried to pay for some fancy lunch, declined. They attempted to book a tour, declined. They even tried to hit up a luxury store, declined. It was almost like clockwork, and with every notification, I felt more and more justified in my decision. I mean, seriously? They had no problem living the high life on my dime, but the second I took control, they were completely helpless. It was like they didn't know how to function without my money backing them up. And that's when it hit me. They'd gotten so used to me being their safety net that they didn't even try to make a plan for themselves. They just assumed I'd keep picking up the pieces. But not this time. Still, the silence from them was unsettling. My mom usually couldn't go more than a few hours without calling me about something, so the fact that I hadn't heard from them since I said no was weird. I knew they were up to something, but I didn't know what. And honestly, I didn't care. Let them figure it out. They were grown adults. It wasn't my responsibility to fix everything for them anymore. But just when I thought they might actually leave me alone for a bit, the phone rang again. I glanced at the screen and saw my dad's name pop up. I sighed, knowing this conversation was going to be a mess, but I figured I might as well get it over with. I picked up the call, bracing myself. "Hey, Dad," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "Helen, we need to talk," he said, his voice tense. "We're still having issues with the card. Every time we try to pay for something, it's declined. What's going on?" I could hear the frustration in his voice, but I wasn't about to cave. "I already told you, Dad. I canceled the card. You can't use it anymore." He was quiet for a moment, like he didn't know how to respond. "Why would you do that? We're stuck here with no way to pay for anything. You can't just leave us stranded like this." That word again. Stranded. Like it was my fault they were in this mess. Like I had somehow forced them to rely on me for everything. "You're not stranded," I said, trying to stay calm. "You're in Hawaii. You're not exactly in the middle of nowhere. You have options. Use your own money." "We don't have enough," he snapped, and I could hear my mom in the background saying something, probably trying to calm him down. "You know we don't have that kind of cash on us. We need you to fix this, Helen. This isn't funny." I felt a wave of anger surge through me. "I never said it was funny, but I'm not fixing it. You've been using me for years, and I'm done with it. This is your mess to clean up, not mine." He was quiet again, and I could tell he didn't know how to handle this. I'd never stood up to them like this before. I'd always been the one to swoop in and save the day, but now? Now they were on their own, and it was hitting them hard. "Helen, please!" My mom's voice came through the phone, softer, but no less desperate. "We're your parents. We didn't mean to hurt you. You just what?" I interrupted. "Used me? Took advantage of me? Lied to me? I know you didn't mean to hurt me, but that's exactly what you did. Over and over again." Her voice broke, and I could hear her trying not to cry. Normally that would have gotten to me. Normally I'd feel guilty and try to make things right. But not this time. I wasn't going to let their emotions control me anymore. I'd spent too many years putting their needs ahead of mine, and I was done. "We just didn't think it was a big deal," she finally said, her voice small. "We thought you wouldn't mind helping. You've always helped us before." "Yeah, and look where that's gotten me," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "I can't even get approved for a loan because of all the debt you've racked up in my name. I've been working my ass off, and you've been living like royalty on my money. And for what? To keep Ellie happy? To make sure she doesn't have to face the fact that her modeling career is going nowhere? I'm not doing it anymore." I could hear my dad sigh on the other end of the line. He knew I was right, but that didn't make it any easier for him to admit it. "We didn't mean to put you in this position, Helen. We thought—" "You didn't think," I cut him off. "You never think about me. You never think about what I need or what I'm going through. It's always about Ellie, and I'm done with that." There was another long pause. I could tell they were both struggling with what I was saying, but at this point, I didn't care. They needed to hear it. They needed to understand that things were different now. "We'll figure it out," my dad finally said, his voice resigned. "We'll find a way home." "Good," I replied, feeling the weight of the conversation start to lift. "That's what you should have been doing all along." After I hung up, I sat there for a while, just letting the silence sink in. It was done. The fight was over, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had control over my own life. My parents were on their own now. It was up to them to figure out how to deal with the mess they'd created, and me? I was finally free. Update 1. After that last conversation with my parents, I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd finally get the message. But of course, that would have been too easy, right? Things never go that smoothly with them. A few days after I told them to figure it out themselves, I get another call from my mom. At this point, I'm thinking, what now? But I pick up because honestly, I want to see if they've learned anything. Spoiler alert, they hadn't. Helen, we're still in Hawaii, she says, her voice practically shaking. Now, I already knew they hadn't left yet because I'd been keeping an eye on my credit card just in case they somehow managed to get access again. But hearing her say it made me roll my eyes. I could tell she was trying to guilt trip me, but I wasn't biting. Yeah, I figured, I replied. So, what's your plan? She hesitated for a second. We're kind of stuck. We don't have enough money to book a flight back, and the hotel won't let us stay any longer without paying. They're asking us to settle the bill before we can check out. I could practically feel the panic in her voice, but it wasn't hitting me like it used to. I wasn't feeling guilty anymore. Instead, I was annoyed. How had they gotten themselves into this mess? Oh wait, I knew exactly how. Years of living off my back without a second thought about the consequences. And you thought I'd fix that for you? I asked, trying to keep my tone calm but firm. Mom, I told you, I'm done. You need to figure this out. But Helen, we don't have the money, she cried. And I could hear my dad in the background mumbling something about selling something or borrowing from someone. The desperation in her voice was real, but that didn't change the fact that they'd dug this hole themselves. I wasn't about to jump in after them. I sighed. You've had years to figure out how to manage your money. You chose to ignore that and live like I'd always bail you out. Now, you're going to have to deal with the consequences. Her voice wavered. We made mistakes. We know that. But we're your parents. You can't just leave us here. That was the part that got me. They really thought I couldn't just leave them there. That no matter how much they'd used me, no matter how much they'd taken from me without caring about how it affected me, I was still supposed to step in and save them because they were my parents. But the truth is, I could leave them there. And I was going to. I can, I said, my voice steady. And I am. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear my mom trying to find the words to change my mind, but nothing came out. I'd made my decision, and for once, I wasn't wavering. Helen, please. My dad's voice cut in this time, sounding more defeated than I'd ever heard him. We're sorry. We know we messed up. We'll make it right when we get back, but we just need help this one last time. That one last time line? Yeah, I'd heard that before. Too many times, actually. And every time I'd believed it. Every time I'd given them another chance, only to watch them screw me over again. I'm not doing this again, I said, my voice firm. You've had enough chances. I'm not your backup plan anymore. But Helen, we're your family, my mom said, her voice barely a whisper. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. Yeah, well, I'm your family too. But you didn't care about that when you were using my credit card to fund Ellie's trips and dinners and shopping sprees. You didn't care about that when you were living off my money while I was working overtime just to keep up with your spending. They didn't have anything to say to that. And really, what could they say? They knew I was right. They knew they'd crossed the line, but they still thought they could somehow guilt me into helping them. Not this time. I ended the call after telling them again to figure it out. I knew it sounded harsh, but I wasn't going to let them walk all over me anymore. They were adults. They could figure it out. They had to. A few hours later, I got a text from my sister. Of course, it was about the same thing. Hey, Helen, Mom and Dad told me what's going on. Can you please just help them this one last time? They're really struggling and I feel bad. I almost laughed when I read it. Ellie, the golden child, the one who my parents had spoiled for years, was now asking me to feel bad for them. Where was she when they were taking advantage of me? Where was she when they were spending my money on her without a second thought? I didn't even bother replying. I was done with all of them. The next few days were quiet. No more calls, no more texts. It was almost eerie, but I figured they'd found some way to scrape together the money to get home. I wasn't about to check in and see if they were okay. They were on their own now, and I was finally free from the constant weight of their needs. It wasn't until the following week that I got another call. This time, it was from my mom again. I braced myself, expecting more guilt tripping, but instead, her voice was different. Helen, she said quietly, we're back home. I didn't say anything, waiting for her to continue. We sold some things and borrowed from a friend to get the money for the flight back, she explained, her voice soft. We wanted to apologize. We know we've put you through a lot. I was surprised, to be honest. I hadn't expected them to actually say sorry. But at the same time, I wasn't about to let them off the hook that easily. I appreciate the apology, I said carefully, but I meant what I said. I'm done helping you. You need to figure things out for yourselves from now on. There was a long pause, and then my mom sighed. We understand. We'll try to be better. I didn't say anything. I didn't know if they really would be better, but at that point, it didn't matter. I'd set my boundaries, and they were going to have to deal with it. After we hung up, I felt this weird mix of emotions. Relief, mostly, but also a little bit of sadness. It's hard to let go of people who are supposed to be there for you, especially when they've let you down so many times. But I knew it was the right decision. For the first time in a long time, I was putting myself first. And it felt damn good. Update 2. I thought cutting them off would be the hard part. I figured once I stopped giving them money, they'd finally realize they had to figure out their own lives. But nope, that's not how it went down. My parents? They went nuclear. It started small with a couple of texts from relatives. At first, I didn't think much of it. Just the usual, hey, haven't heard from you in a while, or how's everything going with your parents? Stuff like that. I thought they were just being nosy or maybe hadn't heard about the whole Hawaii situation. But then it got weird. My aunt texted me one night saying something like, I'm so sorry you're going through this, Helen. Just know that we're here for you. I stared at my phone, confused. Sorry for what? I replied. But she didn't answer right away. I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was just being vague or dramatic, which, honestly, wasn't out of character for her. But then, more messages started coming in, and they weren't so nice. Cousins, distant relatives, even old family friends started reaching out. Except now it wasn't, how are you? It was, how could you abandon your parents like that? Or, I can't believe you'd leave them stranded in another country. And that's when it hit me. They were spreading lies. I'm not even joking. My parents had apparently decided that if they couldn't guilt me into helping them, they'd try to shame me into it. They'd started telling everyone, and I mean everyone, that I'd abandoned them, left them stranded in Hawaii with no money and no way home. The way they spun it, I sounded like the worst daughter on the planet. I tried to let it slide at first. I figured people would realize it was just a sob story and they'd eventually see through it. But no, my parents weren't just telling people in private. They took it public. Like, really public. I found out from a coworker of all people. We were on break when she casually mentioned, hey, I saw your mom's post. That's so rough. I didn't know things were that bad with your family. I looked up from my phone, totally confused. What post? You didn't see it? She asked, sounding a little awkward, like she wished she hadn't said anything. It's all over Facebook. Your mom posted this long thing about how they got stranded in Hawaii and how you wouldn't help them. People are really going off in the comments. I felt my stomach drop. I didn't even bother finishing my break. I went straight to my phone and pulled up Facebook. And there it was. A full-on dramatic post from my mom, complete with pictures from their tragic trip to Hawaii. The captions were something else, too. Stuff like, when your own daughter turns her back on you in your time of need, and abandoned by the person we raised and loved. The comment section? Oh, it was a dumpster fire. People I didn't even know were chiming in, calling me everything from selfish to ungrateful. And the worst part? A lot of them were family members, people I'd known my whole life, jumping on the bandwagon and tearing me apart without even asking my side of the story. I sat there, scrolling through comment after comment, feeling like I was being punched in the gut over and over again. They'd twisted everything. The post made it seem like I'd coldly refused to help my poor, innocent parents who were just trying to get by. No mention of the years of financial abuse, no mention of how they'd used me, drained me, and left me with nothing. Just the story of a heartless daughter who abandoned her parents in paradise. The next few days were hell. I got texts from people I hadn't spoken to in years, some of them straight up accusing me of being the worst daughter ever, others pretending to be concerned and asking if everything was okay, like I didn't know they were just fishing for gossip. It was all a sick game, and I was the villain in my parents' sob story. I tried explaining my side to a few people, but it didn't really help. By the time I even had a chance to respond, the damage was done. My parents had already spun the story their way, and no matter what I said, people had already made up their minds. It was like talking to a wall. They didn't care about the truth. They just loved the drama. At one point, I thought about calling my mom to tell her to take the post down. But what good would that do? She wanted people to see it. She wanted the sympathy, the attention, the validation that she was the victim. And honestly, I don't think she cared about the fallout it was causing for me. All that mattered was that she looked good, that people saw her as the loving, devoted mother who was wronged by her ungrateful daughter. And you know what the worst part is? Some people did reach out to me asking for my side of the story. But even when I explained everything, even when I laid out all the facts about how my parents had been using me for years, some of them just didn't want to believe it. It was easier for them to believe the lie than face the fact that my parents, the people they'd known and trusted, were capable of something like this. The whole thing messed with my head. For weeks, I felt like I couldn't go anywhere without people whispering behind my back. Every family event, every social gathering, I knew people were judging me. And for what? For finally standing up for myself? For refusing to let my parents drain me dry? But here's the thing. As much as it sucked, and believe me, it really sucked, I wasn't going to let them win. I wasn't going to back down just because they decided to drag my name through the mud. I'd come too far to go back to being the daughter they could control with guilt and manipulation. So I stopped checking the comments. I stopped trying to explain myself to people who didn't want to hear it. And slowly, the noise started to die down. People moved on to the next drama, the next family scandal, and I was left with a sense of quiet that, for once, didn't feel like a trap. But I won't forget what they did. The way they tried to turn everyone against me. The way they painted me as the villain to cover up their own mistakes. It's something that sticks with you, something that changes the way you see people. And yeah, it hurt, but it also made me stronger. I'm not their safety net anymore. I'm not their scapegoat. And no matter how many Facebook posts they make, no matter how many people they turn against me, I know I did the right thing. And in the end, that's all that really matters. My parents were family vloggers, and it completely ruined my life. So here's my story. I, 23F, grew up in a family that decided to broadcast almost every part of our lives to the world. I didn't ask for it, I didn't want it, but somehow it became my reality. My parents started vlogging back in 2013, and at first it wasn't even planned, like it just kind of happened. They posted this video of my little brother doing something dumb, and for some reason it blew up, like millions of views. And my parents were hooked. They saw how much attention they could get from one random video and decided, hey, let's do this all the time. And just like that, we became a family vlogging channel. I was 12 when this whole thing started, and to be honest, it didn't sit right with me from the beginning. I've always been a shy person, even as a kid. Like, I didn't want to be in front of a camera all the time. But my parents? Oh, they didn't care about that. For them, it was all about the views and the subscribers. The more we put ourselves out there, the better. And since I was a part of the family, there wasn't really any escaping it. I mean, what was I going to do? Say no? Yeah, right. My brother, on the other hand, loved it. He was like the total opposite of me. Loud, goofy, always up for attention. So, in the early days, the videos mostly focused on him. He was the star of the show, and my parents were all about using him for content. But pretty soon, that wasn't enough. They wanted more. They needed more. And that's when things really started to spiral. The vlogging became a full-time thing. They went from posting a random video here and there to uploading every single day. I'm talking every single day. And of course, we all had to be a part of it. My parents would stage these little family moments to make everything look perfect. Like, they'd have us do these cheesy activities that none of us actually enjoyed, just because they thought it would look good on camera. And even when we didn't feel like filming, we had no choice. My mom and dad would say things like, "It'll be fun," or "We're doing this for the family." But really, it was just for the views. Always for the views. And then, it got worse. My parents realized that people loved watching us grow up. But not in a normal, innocent way. I didn't understand it at the time, but now I do. And it makes me sick to my stomach. Our audience was mostly adult men. Like, grown men who probably had no business watching family vlogs, especially not the kind of stuff my parents were putting out there. They filmed things that should have been private, like super private. When I got my first period, that was a video. When I got my first bra, another video. They even filmed me getting my braces on, like it was some big milestone that needed to be shared with the world. I remember feeling so uncomfortable. But again, I didn't have a choice. My parents acted like it was all normal. They'd say things like, "Oh, we're just sharing our family's journey." But I could feel something was off, even as a kid. I wasn't stupid. I could see the comments these men were leaving under our videos, and it made me feel gross. But my parents never talked about it. They ignored it, or maybe they didn't even care. I don't know. All they saw were the views and the money that came with it. Around this time, the channel really started taking off. We went from a few thousand subscribers to millions in what felt like no time. People started recognizing us in public, which was super weird. I'd be out shopping with my mom, and some random stranger would come up to us like, "Oh my God, I watch your videos every day." And my mom would eat it up. She loved the attention. She was all smiles and would even offer to take pictures with people. Meanwhile, I'd just stand there, wishing I could disappear. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a fun hobby for my parents anymore. It was their life. It was our life. And it was like there was no escaping it. I tried talking to them about how I felt, how being on camera all the time made me uncomfortable, and how I didn't want all these strangers knowing every detail of my life. But they brushed it off. My dad would say stuff like, "We're doing this for the family." And my mom would go on about how we were building something special. But it never felt special to me. It felt invasive. I started to resent it. But no matter how much I complained, it didn't change anything. One thing that really pissed me off was how my parents made everything look so perfect on camera. They'd post these videos where we'd all be laughing and smiling, doing fun activities like going to the beach or making homemade pizzas. But behind the scenes, it was a completely different story. My parents were constantly arguing. I could hear them yelling at each other late at night, slamming doors, throwing stuff around. It wasn't a happy family, not by a long shot, but none of that ever made it into the videos. The world thought we were this wholesome, happy family, but it was all fake. Every single bit of it. And honestly, that's what bothered me the most. The lies. The fact that my parents were willing to put on this fake front for the internet while ignoring the real issues at home. I mean, I get it, I guess. Nobody wants to watch a family fall apart. But it still felt wrong. Like, why couldn't they just admit that things weren't perfect? Why did they have to act like we were something we weren't? It made me feel like I wasn't even living in a real family anymore. Just some weird, staged version of one. I started distancing myself as much as I could. I stopped talking in the videos unless I absolutely had to. I'd just sit there with a fake smile plastered on my face, waiting for it to be over. But my parents didn't care. As long as I was in the shot, that's all that mattered to them. It didn't matter how I felt. And it definitely didn't matter that I hated every second of it. They just kept filming, day in and day out, like nothing was wrong. Looking back, I wish I had fought harder to stop it. I wish I had been brave enough to stand up and say, "No, I'm done." But I was just a kid. And when you're a kid, you think your parents know best. You think they have your best interests at heart. But sometimes, they don't. Alright, so after the vlogging really kicked off, things at home started to change fast. And honestly, not in a good way. You'd think that with all the subscribers and views, our family would be like super happy, right? Nah, not even close. In fact, it was the opposite. It was like the more we put on this fake happy face for the camera, the worse things got behind the scenes. But of course, nobody outside of the house knew that. The viewers? They ate it all up like candy. My parents were all about making our lives look perfect. Like, the channel started as something casual, but once it took off, everything became so staged. Every moment had to be planned and picture perfect, even the smallest things. We weren't just living our lives anymore. We were performing. It was exhausting. We couldn't even have a normal family dinner without it being turned into some kind of event for the vlog. And trust me, it wasn't like those dinners were as happy and cheerful as they made it look. I remember this one time, my mom decided we were going to do this family cooking challenge video. She had us all in the kitchen, pretending like we were having the best time ever, joking around and accidentally messing things up. But the reality was that my parents had been fighting just an hour before we filmed. They'd been screaming at each other so loudly that I thought someone was going to break something. And then, just like that, the camera turns on and everyone's smiling like nothing ever happened. I'd be standing there, stirring a pot of whatever we were pretending to cook, just trying to keep that fake smile going. I don't know how I did it, honestly. It's weird how you can put on a face for so long that it almost feels normal, even when it's the furthest thing from the truth. My dad would crack these awful jokes that he thought were hilarious, and I'd have to force a laugh even though I didn't think it was funny at all. Meanwhile, I'm thinking about how they'd just been yelling at each other over some dumb argument about money. That was the thing that really started to show up. Money. Once the channel blew up, my parents became obsessed with it. Every conversation seemed to come back to views, sponsorships, and how much money we could make from certain types of videos. It wasn't about the content anymore, it was about the cash. And if a video didn't get as many views as they wanted, they'd freak out. I swear. It was like their whole mood depended on the numbers. If a video bombed, my dad would get all moody, and you just knew to stay out of his way. If a video did well, they'd act like we just won the lottery. At the time, I didn't really understand how much money they were making, but I knew it was a lot. Like, they started buying new stuff all the time. A new car, fancy gadgets, expensive clothes. But we weren't living like a rich family either. It was weird. They'd splurge on random things, but at the same time, we'd be sitting there eating ramen for dinner because they couldn't be bothered to cook or grocery shop like normal people. It didn't make any sense. It got even weirder when they started controlling who we could hang out with. Like, Before all this, I had a couple of friends from school and we'd hang out on weekends or whatever, but once we were in full-on vlogging mode, my parents pulled me out of regular school and started homeschooling us. They said it was so we could focus on the channel and not get distracted by outside stuff. But really, it just made us even more isolated. The only people we were allowed to hang out with were other kids from family vlogging channels. They'd say stuff like, they understand our lifestyle, but really, it was all about keeping up appearances. I lost touch with pretty much everyone, and the friends I made through vlogging, let's just say those friendships weren't real. It was like they were only friends with me because they wanted to be in our videos, and my parents wanted to be in theirs. Everything felt like a transaction, like, hey, let's do a collab, or we should all film a challenge video together. It was never about actually hanging out, and of course, the parents were always there, hovering, making sure everything was going smoothly for the cameras. I remember one of those collabs where my parents invited over this other family vlogging crew. The kids were around our age, and we were all supposed to film some dumb prank video. The thing is, none of us actually wanted to do it. The other kids looked just as miserable as I felt, but our parents were pushing us, telling us to have fun and just be ourselves. It's hard to be yourself when you've got a camera in your face 24/7 and your parents yelling at you to look happy. That's what sucked the most. We weren't allowed to be unhappy. Like, it wasn't even an option. If you had a bad day, too bad. If you were upset about something, suck it up. No matter what was going on, the show had to go on. My parents treated it like a job, and we were their employees. And if we didn't want to work, well, tough luck. I started feeling trapped. The more the channel grew, the more we were expected to do. What started as just a fun thing for them turned into our entire lives. And it wasn't just about filming anymore. It was about keeping up this image. My parents made it seem like we were living this dream life when, really, everything was falling apart behind the scenes. We had no privacy. Everything was content, from waking up in the morning to going to bed at night. There was no escape. I remember waking up one morning and my mom was already filming. Like, I didn't even have a chance to brush my hair or get dressed. She was just there with the camera in my face, talking about how we were going to have a great family day and do all these fun activities. Meanwhile, I was just thinking about how I didn't even want to get out of bed, let alone be on camera. But of course, I had no say in it. My dad came in, cracking jokes about how I was sleeping in too long and needed to get up for the vlog. It was so fake. Everything was so fake. But the audience? They had no clue. They saw what my parents wanted them to see. Perfect family, perfect life, perfect kids. And we were just props in their show. So by the time things hit their peak, we were deep into this whole family vlogging thing. It wasn't just a side hobby or something for fun anymore. It was our entire life. And trust me, there was a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes that the viewers never saw. Like, people thought they knew us, but they had no idea what was actually going down. First off, my parents' marriage was completely falling apart and nobody knew. My mom and dad could barely be in the same room without arguing. And when they did, it was always about something stupid. I think the pressure of the channel really got to them. They had to keep up this perfect image for the camera. But it was like, the more perfect they tried to make it look, the worse things got between them. It started small, little fights about money or scheduling videos. But then, it got real ugly. I'd hear them yelling at each other late at night when they thought we were asleep. My dad would get pissed about something, and my mom would just take it until she couldn't anymore, then snap back. I don't know when it happened, but at some point, my dad stopped caring about the family and started caring more about the channel, the money, and, well, other people. Yeah, you guessed it. My dad was cheating on my mom. And not just with some random person either. Nope. It was with this woman who ran a smaller family vlogging channel. That's right, someone from the vlogging world. The crazy part? They'd met because we did a collab with their family for a video. And while the rest of us were being forced to pretend we were all having fun on camera, my dad was sneaking off with her behind my mom's back. Real classy, right? The worst part is that my mom had no clue at first. She just thought my dad was stressed out from all the filming and managing the channel. He'd make excuses to leave the house, saying he was going to meet with sponsors or scout locations for videos. But in reality, he was off with her doing God knows what. And I found out by accident. I remember one day I was using my dad's laptop because mine was dead, and I needed to finish some schoolwork. I'm not even snooping or anything. I literally just opened his email to send myself a file, and boom, there it was. A bunch of emails between him and this woman. They weren't even trying to hide it. He was emailing her right in the middle of our vlogging workdays. It was all there. Plans to meet up, messages about how much they loved spending time together. It was disgusting. My stomach dropped and I just sat there staring at the screen, not knowing what to do. Part of me wanted to tell my mom right then and there, but I was also terrified. Like, this was going to blow everything up. And not just the channel or their marriage, but our entire family. I ended up closing the laptop and pretending like I didn't see anything. I didn't know what else to do, and honestly, I was too scared to deal with the fallout. But of course, secrets like that don't stay hidden forever. A couple of months later, my mom found out. I'm not sure how exactly, whether she saw something, heard something, or maybe just put the pieces together. But one day, everything exploded. I was upstairs when it happened, but you could hear the screaming from across the house. My mom was crying, and my dad was trying to deny it at first, but then he just gave up and admitted everything. The next few days were like living in a war zone. My parents barely spoke to each other unless they were fighting, and us kids were caught in the middle. My younger siblings didn't fully understand what was going on, but I did. I knew the family was done. There was no coming back from this, and yet, somehow, they still kept up the vlogs. It was the most surreal thing I've ever experienced. Like, they'd literally be screaming at each other one minute, and then the next, we'd all be sitting in the living room filming a fun family game night like nothing was wrong. At that point, I think my mom was just trying to hold on to anything she could. She didn't want to let go of the channel because, let's be real, it was all we had. She didn't work, and the channel was our main source of income. I think she thought that if we kept vlogging, maybe things would somehow go back to normal. But it wasn't going to happen. My dad had already checked out. One day after one of their huge fights, my dad just packed his bags and left. He said he needed space and was going to stay at a friend's house for a while, but we all knew where he was really going. My mom tried to keep it together, but you could tell she was a wreck. She'd go from crying her eyes out one minute to pretending everything was fine the next. It was hard to watch, but what could we do? The weirdest thing was how my parents tried to hide all of this from the viewers. They didn't want anyone to know what was really going on, so they kept pretending like everything was fine. They'd still post vlogs of us doing stupid things like family outings or fun challenges, but none of it was real. It was like we were living in some alternate reality where nothing was wrong. I hated every second of it. The stress of keeping up the act got to my mom, though. She started popping pills just to get through the day. At first it was just for her back pain, but then it became something more. She'd take them all the time, even when she didn't need them. It was her way of escaping, I guess. And while she was zoning out, we were left to fend for ourselves. I started feeling like I was losing both my parents. My dad was gone, off with his new girlfriend, and my mom was so out of it that she barely noticed us anymore. The channel was still running, but it was like nobody cared about the family behind it. It was all just about keeping up appearances, no matter how fake it was. Looking back, it's crazy how long we kept the lie going. The viewers had no clue that our family was completely falling apart behind the scenes. They thought we were still this happy, perfect family, when really, we were all just trying to survive. After my dad left, things got real bad at home. I mean, it had already been bad before, but once he walked out, it was like the whole house was in a permanent state of chaos. My mom was still trying to keep the channel going, but you could tell she wasn't really there anymore. She'd be filming us doing stupid stuff like baking or going to the park, but her heart wasn't in it. She'd put on this fake smile for the camera, but as soon as it turned off, she'd just sit there, staring off into space or scrolling through her phone. I guess she was trying to distract herself from the fact that everything had fallen apart. The money started drying up pretty fast after my dad left too. See, my dad was the one who handled all the sponsorships and deals with the brands, and without him, it was like the whole thing just slowed down. The views were still there, but they weren't coming in as fast, and my mom had no idea how to run the business side of things. She kept saying everything would be fine, but I could see she was panicking. I remember her getting a call from one of our big sponsors asking for my dad, and she had to lie and say he was out of town for a few weeks. They bought it, but barely. And honestly, I wasn't even mad about the money. I didn't care about that. What really bothered me was how my mom was still pretending everything was fine for the camera. Like, even though my dad had left us, even though the family was a mess, she was still putting us in front of the camera like we were some happy, normal family. It was so fake, and I hated it. I started to avoid being in the videos as much as I could. I'd stay in my room or make up excuses about having too much schoolwork to do. But my mom wasn't having it. She'd come banging on my door, telling me I needed to pull my weight and help keep the channel going because it was all we had left. I remember one time, she got really mad at me for refusing to film. We were supposed to go to this pumpkin patch for some dumb fall-themed video, and I just couldn't do it. I was so tired of pretending, so tired of putting on this fake smile and acting like everything was fine. So I told her I wasn't going. She freaked out saying how I was ruining everything and that I needed to stop being so selfish. I snapped back, telling her that she was the one being selfish, making us live this fake life just for some views. That didn't go over well. She started crying, saying that without the channel, we'd have nothing, that we'd lose the house, and that I was being ungrateful for everything she'd done for us. I felt bad, but at the same time, I was so angry. It wasn't me who ruined everything. It was her and Dad. They were the ones who decided to put our whole lives online. They were the ones who turned us into content. And now that it was all falling apart, somehow it was my fault? It didn't make any sense. As much as I hated it, I knew I couldn't just leave. I was still stuck living there, and no matter how much I tried to stay out of the videos, my mom would always find a way to pull me back in. And when I wasn't in the videos, I was still helping behind the scenes. Editing, planning, whatever. It was like there was no escape from the vlogging world, even though the whole thing was slowly crumbling. The rest of the family was falling apart too. My younger siblings didn't really understand what was going on, but they could feel it. They knew something was wrong, even if my mom kept telling them everything was fine. My little brother started acting out, getting into trouble at school and picking fights with me and my other sisters. He was angry all the time, and I don't blame him. He was too young to really understand why Dad left, and my mom wasn't telling him the truth. She'd say things like, "Dad's just busy with work," or "He'll be back soon." But we all knew that wasn't true. It wasn't just the lying that bothered me. It was the fact that, despite everything that had happened, my mom still seemed to care more about the channel than about fixing our family. She'd spend hours editing videos or replying to comments, but she barely spent any time with us. I mean, we were right there in the house, but she was so checked out, it was like we didn't even exist unless we were in front of the camera. And that hurt. It was like we only mattered when we were content. I remember this one night when I finally broke down. I'd been bottling everything up for so long, just trying to get through each day without losing it. But that night, I couldn't take it anymore. I was in my room, scrolling through old videos, watching myself pretend to be happy on camera, and it just hit me how fake everything was. I started crying, and once I started, I couldn't stop. It was like everything I'd been holding in for years just came pouring out. My mom must have heard me because she came into my room and asked what was wrong. At first, I didn't want to tell her. I mean, what was the point? She wasn't going to change, but she kept pushing, saying how she was worried about me, how she needed me to be strong for the family, and that just made me angrier. So, I told her. I told her everything. How I hated being in the videos, how I hated the fake life we were living, how I missed Dad even though I was mad at him, how I just wanted to have a normal life without cameras in my face all the time. She didn't say anything at first. She just sat there, staring at me like she didn't know what to do. Then she started crying. She said she never meant for things to get this bad, that she thought the channel would bring us closer together, not tear us apart. I didn't really know how to respond to that. I mean, it was too late now, right? The damage was already done. After that, things didn't really change. I guess my mom thought that one heart-to-heart would fix everything, but it didn't. We were still vlogging, still pretending, still putting on a show for the camera, and as much as I wanted to, I couldn't just walk away from it. Not yet, anyway. By the time I hit 18, I knew I couldn't take it anymore. I was done with the vlogging, done with the fake life, and done pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. The minute I graduated high school, I was out of there. I didn't even care where I was going or what I was going to do. I just knew I had to leave. I packed my stuff and told my mom I was moving out. She tried to act surprised, but I think deep down, she knew it was coming. She didn't fight me on it, which was weird, but I guess by then she realized I was serious. I didn't have much of a plan. I had some money saved up from doing odd jobs and stuff, and a friend from school offered to let me crash at their place for a while. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Anything was better than staying in that house. I remember walking out the door with my bags, and my little siblings were sitting on the couch, glued to the TV. They didn't even look up. It hit me then how disconnected we'd all become. We used to be a family, but now we were just a bunch of strangers living under the same roof. The first few months on my own were tough, not gonna lie. I didn't have much, and I had to hustle to make ends meet. I got a part-time job at this coffee shop, which wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. I started taking a few community college classes too, just to keep myself busy and figure out what I wanted to do. It was weird though, being out in the real world after spending so long in that vlogging bubble. Like, I didn't know how to just be a regular person. For so long, everything I did was for the camera, for the content. Now it was like, I had to figure out who I was without all that. But I was determined to move on. I didn't want to be tied to the vlogging world anymore. I didn't want to be that girl from the YouTube videos. I wanted to be me. The problem was, no matter how far I tried to run from it, the internet wouldn't let me forget. People still recognized me. I'd be at work or in class and someone would come up to me like, "Hey, aren't you from that family vlog?" And I'd just smile and nod, trying to brush it off, but inside I hated it. I hated that they only saw me as this character from a show, not as a real person. It got worse when random people started messaging me online, asking why I wasn't in the videos anymore. Apparently, my mom never told anyone that I left. She just stopped putting me in the vlogs like I didn't exist anymore. And people noticed. I'd get these weird DMs from strangers asking if I was okay or if something had happened. Some of them were creepy too, like guys saying they missed seeing me in the videos. It was gross. I tried to ignore it at first, but the messages kept coming. Eventually, I had to delete all my social media accounts just to get some peace. It sucked because I lost touch with a lot of people that way, but I couldn't handle the constant reminders of that life. I just wanted to disappear and start over, but it felt like I couldn't shake the past no matter how hard I tried. The worst part was that my mom never reached out. After I left, it was like she just erased me from her life, just like she did with the videos. No calls, no texts, nothing. At first, I was angry. Like, how could she not care? How could she just let me walk away without even trying to fix things? But as time went on, I realized that maybe it was better this way. We had nothing left to say to each other. The damage had already been done. I did try to reconnect with my siblings, though. I missed them, and I knew they were still stuck in that house, still part of the vlogging world. But it wasn't easy. Every time I called or texted, they were busy filming or editing, and my mom made sure to keep them distracted. I felt like I was losing them too, and there wasn't much I could do about it. One day, I decided to go back home for a visit. I don't know why I thought it would be a good idea, but I guess I was feeling nostalgic or something. It had been about a year since I'd left, and I thought maybe things had changed. Maybe my mom had realized how messed up everything was and had made an effort to fix things. Spoiler alert, she didn't. When I got there, it was like nothing had changed at all. The house looked the same, the cameras were still everywhere, and my mom was still in full vlogger mode. She greeted me at the door with the same fake smile she always used for the videos, and I could tell right away that this wasn't going to go the way I'd hoped. She tried to act all nice, asking me how I'd been and what I was up to, but I could see it was just for show. We sat down in the living room, and within minutes, she started talking about the channel. She wanted to know if I'd come back and start filming with them again. She said that viewers had been asking about me and that it would be good for the channel to have me back in the videos. I couldn't believe it. After everything that had happened, after all the reasons I'd left, all she cared about was getting me back on camera. It was like she hadn't listened to a single thing I'd said before I left. I told her no, obviously. I wasn't going back to that life. I told her that I was trying to move on, that I didn't want to be part of the vlogging world anymore. She didn't take it well. She started getting defensive, saying that I was being selfish, that I was abandoning the family, that I was throwing away everything we'd built. I couldn't believe she still didn't get it. It wasn't about the channel. It was about the fact that she had used us, that she had turned our entire lives into content for strangers, and now she was acting like I was the one who did something wrong. I left the house that day and haven't been back since. I don't think I ever will. It's hard, not being part of my family anymore, but in a weird way, I'm okay with it. I've finally started to move on, and I'm figuring out who I am without the cameras, without the views, without all the fake smiles. It's not easy, but it's real. And that's all I've ever wanted.